everybody. Today we're going to talk about interfaces, specifically how your user is going to interact with your product that you're going to produce, right? So you might have heard a term called UX UI, and this is basically saying the user experience and the user interface. They kind of combine them into one, and they're both really critical for, how your user is interacting with your game in this case, right? Because this is a game development class. And they're important. It tells, but they're both kind of unique. User interface or user experience is how you feel when you're playing the game, right? Like, is it easy? Is it frustrating? Are you able to find all the information you need? And can you follow it easily? Like, for example, like, is your health bar in the center of the screen so that you can still look at your character and see your health, or do you have to like look up in the top left, whatever, to see your health bar go down, and so then you might miss it, either miss something that you're standing in or miss the your health going down, right? It's that kind of information is the user experience. The user interface is basically what it looks like and how you interact with it, right? So that same health bar, right, is it just bar that says where you're at, like that fills is full when you have full health and is half when you have half health, but you don't actually know that it's like at 50%, or is it at 60% and you just can't quite tell? All that kind of information is more of the interface, like what it looks like, what all menu buttons you have, all that different kind of things. There are some definite things that make up a good design versus bad design for user experience. You might think it's a little subjective, what people like, how they make them feel. And I will say, like, right, I've played, World of Warcraft, and, it starts off with your user information in the top left-hand corner. And I know a lot of people who move it to the center so that it's easily readable, and having that flexibility makes it so that, right, there is no really good or bad user experience, because each user wants to experience it a slightly different way. But that's when you could modify it and change it. But there's a lot of websites and stuff you go to where you don't have that option. And you could tell, like, ones that are better than the others is because it flows pretty easily, it's easily readable, right? So minimalistic and purposeful. I'm a firm believer in not, like, you should easily look at your screen and know exactly what you're doing on it. It shouldn't have too much information. And but it also needs to have enough information. It needs to be user-centered. It needs to have them be the focus. Like, what is their intent of coming to this page? What are we going to make them do? It should easily communicate everything that the user needs, and it should be consistent, and it should be positive or responsive in feedback, right? And when it gets bad design, it's overly complicated. It's like difficult to challenging to navigate. Things don't work the same way throughout the whole entire thing, and all of that. I got this comparison on this website, and they actually had this really good quote. Ultimately, the difference between good and bad design comes down to one thing: empathy. Good design empathizes with the user while considering their cognitive ability and emotional state. It anticipates needs instead of reacting to complaints. However, bad design does the opposite. It demands attention without offering value, often frustrating users to the point of rage quitting an experience. I don't know why, but I just really liked that quote, because it just really, to me, tells you that basically, right, empathizing with the user, putting yourself in the user's place. A lot of times it's like trying to dictate what the user should be experiencing, as opposed to going, what do they want? How can I give them what they want and keep them happy, and make sure that they can figure out what they need? And that is what I usually try, is like, any student who's had me knows, like, I'm one of those who's like going to put in the wrong answer, going to see, does your program tell me what the right answer is supposed to be, or do I just have to figure it out? So that's what I like about, and I try to emphasize with the user experience is, like, rather than make them guess, help them understand what's going on. I always like visual examples, and so to me this is a good visual example of uh, user experience, like the good and bad of it. You can see the bad, it has a lot more clutter to it. It's a little harder to see all the data, a lot more blocks of data and not a lot of white space. Whereas this one has a lot of white space and it's a little bit more limited on data, which is sometimes can seem like it's counterintuitive. But I'm one of those people that if I have a wall of text, I'm not going to read any of it. It's just going to be a big blur. Whereas if you have a lot of white space, it's a little easier for me to navigate and read. And this is like the user experience. Like, this has the same exact information on both Form A and Form B. But you can see why Form B is so much better. One, it kind of gives you the form hierarchy, right? Like what is supposed to go in each one. And the other is when you're typing something in, you can see the whole thing, right? I could see the whole email address on the Form B where you cannot see the whole email address on Form A. And so just the user experience of not, like the interface, being able to read everything completely, being able to, enter stuff in and know which order you're going to be doing it in, it's all helpful experience. When I was looking for images, I found this one, and I'm like, oh my god, that's just perfect for explaining the difference between user interfaces and user experience, right? So, user interfaces, it's a glass versus a plastic bottle. Like, right, they're completely different, just texture and holding them, things you could interact with them, how you interact with them, definitely different. And one is a bottle that stands where the top is at the top, or the opening is at the top, or the opening's at the bottom, and it makes a huge difference with getting ketchup out of a bottle, right? That, like, take this one, it could, because of air pressure and stuff, could make it so that it's hard to get any ketchup out. You have to, like, shake it and squeeze it to get the air out, to get the ketchup to come out. Whereas this one, the ketchup's already there. You just squeeze it, and the ketchup comes out. I just really liked that as an example. So we've really just been talking about like user interfaces, but there's other things that make up user interfaces. So such as like keyboards and mouse, and if you're going to use a controller and the music, all of that kind of affects like in the video of everything that you're going to be doing. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is keyboards. Keyboards are one of those things that is like, for the most part, it seems pretty standard, right? You're going to be doing an interface with your WASD, like, because most of Americans do that. But have you thought about like is your game going to take off in, China? Is it going to take off in other areas? Is it just English? Are you going to have it be different things? Like, all of that kind of matters when you're going to be taking into account the user interface and like what keyboard keys you're going to have things happen with. And it's not just different languages, it's doing different things. If you go against a norm and a standard, it could mess things up. And my personal experience with this has been with Blender and Unreal. So I like first worked on Maya, and then I worked in Unreal, and they're very similar. And like, this is just one of the things that they both have in them, and even Blender, they have like the move, rotate, and scale your object, right? Well, in Blender or in Unreal and in Maya, they use WER. Why is WER? Not too sure, but it's WER. Do you know what it is in Blender? GRS. So, I mean, to be honest, the R and the S makes sense because it's at least, trying to go rotate and scale. That makes sense. But then when you think about, like, if you're also using WSD, and I don't know, it just gets confusing that they're so different in how they set things up that it makes it a challenge, right? And so that's one of the things that goes back to the user interface. Is it frustrating? Is it clearly defined? How are you managing it? Now, something similar could happen with like the mouse. Like this is one of those things that I when I tried to use Blender, I got really frustrated with, and I actually like quit out of it because I couldn't figure it out. It wasn't intuitive to figure out the controls. And it's because it's completely different controls than Unreal, right? So to rotate the view, it's the middle click and drag as opposed to the right click and drag. To pan, it's shift middle click, whereas just pan view is middle click. And zoom, that's the same. Fly over, you need the shift and the back tick to fly over in Blender, where it's right click and hold the WASDs. So right, it's slightly different than Unreal, and it makes it challenging to try to go back and forth. If you're used to one, having to automatically switch to another can make it a little more challenging, even with mouse, right? And then we also have interfaces with the screens, like I was talking about. Like, you can, this is a really good example of like a good, clean, like where your health is readable and you're used to it. The time is updating, where everything is on it. And then I just like to include this because it's a really bad interface. It is of World of Warcraft, like a really old version of it, where it has way too much information on it, way too cluttered. You can't read anything on it, in my opinion. It is not mine. Don't worry. It is definitely not what my screen looks like. But just kind of to show you how it could get out of control a lot. So here are the top three things I want you to remember. One is know your player, know your user, know who you're designing your item for, and keep them in mind when you're doing this, right? Whenever you're like always, you're not programming it necessarily for yourself, you're programming it for somebody else to play and somebody else to do it. And try to think about being in their shoes and what they're looking for, and test early, test often. The other thing is consistency is key, right? Using similar colors, similar fonts, keeping things flowing so it looks good together, that it works together. Just have it be so that, because then that helps with the user experience, right? They know what to expect. They know what it looks like. They know what's coming next. And then, like the showing of the World of Warcraft, right? Less is more. You don't need to overclutter your screen. One of the things I read someplace was you're done when there's nothing left you can remove from the interface. The idea here is you want enough information so you get all the information across, but you don't want, let's just go back to it, you just don't want this. All right? So I hope you enjoyed this on user interfaces, and I'll see you in the next video.